Welcome into our final football podcast here on the Biggie Breakdown. The EKU Sports Network crew here with you. Presented by Kentucky 811 is our weekly preview show, wrapping up this week with Utah Tech. We'll finish the season with the Trailblazers. Let's go back and talk about last week against Abilene Christian, right there in the game. Just a couple unfortunate circumstances there at the end, and Abilene Christian was able to score the last 11.
Yeah, I mean, the wind had such a factor. It was blustering and blowing from south to north at 30 miles an hour. And the weird thing is that EKU had the better field position going the right way at the end of the game, but the quarterback made a mistake. He tried to force something and the fumble, and you can only ask the defense to do so much. And Eastern Kentucky had the football 15 minutes, 12 seconds less than the other team and ran 44 fewer plays. That attrition on the defense finally showed up. I thought the defense played winning football. The offense didn't.
Which has been a recurring theme this season. How many times have we talked about that after a game? And the one little thing that I've got nagging in the back of my head, and we always play what if games when you're talking about football, but what if the wind hadn't been blowing? Is the wind as great an equalizer as we thought it was on Saturday? We could never get the actual answer to that question, but you kind of think, could it have gone a different direction if the wind wasn't blowing that way because the teams had to strategize about which end zone they were going from the opening tip, that type of thing. And it just kind of nags at me a little bit because I think the wind kind of helped EKU equal things up on the field for that game.
And I look through the Wells era, 6 years now. EKU has always played a supremely hard FCS schedule when you factor in usually two FBS opponents. Sometimes, even once, he had two Power Fours. And they've been in a lot of games. They've been to the playoffs twice. But here's the thing. Can you imagine this defense with a Parker McKinney offense? In other words, we've never had the full complement of really good offense, really good special teams, and really good defense. There's always been one hangnail in the thing. And this year, it's been really magnified, like it was 2 seasons ago with the defense. And I think it's going to be even harder and harder to do that as we head into this transfer portal situation where we go January 2nd to the 16th. And uh, who knows what the future is going to bring for any of these teams, including Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, and I had a long conversation with Coach Anderson from Utah Tech about how the transfer portal has really affected things. And now it gets well, it's different. It's going to be a shorter window. It's just changing almost every season the way that it's not going to be the wild, wild west anymore, where it's just all willy-nilly. But it will be a little bit different. You have a shorter window. It's a 2-week window in January. How does that further affect changes for Eastern Kentucky down the line? You have to make home runs. I mean, you're not even afforded too many singles. You've got to get extra base hits, guys that come in, fill your weaknesses, fill your holes through the transfer portal, ready to go right out of the gate. And you're allowed very, very few hiccups when you're choosing those kids coming out of the transfer portal with less time to make research about them, with less time to get to know about them personally. Just everything's going to be tougher. So those coaches that can go in and make those snap decisions and make them right are going to be the guys that win at the level that we're talking about, especially at the upper level of the FCS.
But here's the problem with that is you think, oh, I've got this, this, and this, but you have to anticipate who's going to be rated. I mean, Walt Wells will tell you every coach, including him and other people on staffs across FCS, are getting calls from agents or hearing from other coaches that, hey, somebody's looking up higher is looking at your players. I mean, look at Eastern Kentucky. They may look at several defensive players that still have eligibility. So you may be able to say, oh, I can go get this guy, and this guy. But what if you lost and you still may not improve your team? The only good thing is that all the FCS teams are playing at the same level and facing the same thing. The bad news is some of the upper level teams in the FCS have more resources to do it than others do. And I don't think Eastern Kentucky is anywhere near the top in resources, but they're probably not at the bottom. And how do you allocate those resources? Is it, there's different ways to do it and there's different factors. And so it's just not like it was where we got all excited about recruiting classes and we didn't talk about transfers. It drives me crazy. I don't like it, but it is the way it is, and you have to accept it and you have to adapt to it.
What you have to do is go with connections. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
go with guys that you have some kind of thread with that you feel you can trust. There's some kind of, can I say, a high school coach. You know the high school coach. They can vouch for that player coming through the transfer portal. Family member may have been on the school, may have played for the school at a previous time. Um, even college coaches that you may have had on your staff before. Maybe you can trust in them to learn about a player that's in the transfer portal. But Coach Anderson told me, he said, look, the way it used to be was you called a kid, you got to know him, you made sure that you knew his family, you knew his high school coaches, and you were able to develop that relationship. No longer is college football about developing relationships. It's a microwave society. I've said that for years. People want their popcorn right now. I don't want to take time to cook it on the stove. I'm going to throw that bag in a microwave and have it ready to go in 2.5 minutes. That's the way we are about almost everything now, and including college football. It's got to be, hey, I'm coming in for a year. If we do great, that's wonderful. I may get out again. It's really prevalent, and we won't get into it, but it's really prevalent in college basketball. I've seen athletes that are on their fifth school in 5 years. They go to a
Oh, yeah.
different school every year of their college career. But you're right, it drives us crazy because we've got to. You can't tell the players without a program. It's never been more true than it is now in all college sports.
Yeah, it's made preparation a little bit more voluminous because you're turning your roster over. I can't imagine how coaches deal with it. But who are the first people to make a lot of money? And I'm not saying at this level, but higher up. I mean, who started the whole ball running? Television money, and coaching salaries. In my opinion, that's where it all started. And of course, the players deserve more, but I don't know that we have it in the right path. But they're not going to ask us how to do it. But obviously, it impacts us, and we're not happy about it, right? I mean, so I can't imagine what coaches are dealing with right now. I think it's going to drive some people from the business.
I think it already has. You see some that have already left the business because of that too. Well, but before we focus solely on the transfer portal, we got one more game to finish up the 2025 season. Utah Tech, it's cross country flight for EKU. Want to end the season on a strong positive note. That's the goal. It's business-like approach for EKU against Utah Tech this weekend.
Well, this is a Utah Tech team that's negative 12 in turnover margin. They've made 4 turnovers in each of the last 2 games, plus their first game of the year. Eastern Kentucky is a team that turned them over and got a touchdown on a fumble recovery last year here at home. But Utah Tech has also beaten UNA in overtime and almost had 500 yards, and Eastern Kentucky loses at UNA by 21. So I don't think this Jim, and you talked to Coach Anderson. I don't think this game is going to be any cakewalk. They have, according to the Massey ratings, the fifth toughest schedule at FCS football, and they want to do the same thing EKU does, and that's put a kind of a positive spin on what has been a downer of a season.
Yeah, they want to run the football. They want to be physical. They want to be like EKU. I mean, he said it more than once in our conversation. They would like to have that physicality and be able. The thing about them is that they have the offensive line, probably the strongest part of their team. They're number one in the UAC in tackles for loss allowed. They're number one in the UAC in sacks allowed. This is a really nice core group they've got on the offensive line, and I think probably one of the better groups in the UAC. They've just not had the complement. You mentioned the turnovers. It's been just voluminous at times how they give the football away. And just couldn't put everything together this season. They've had some injuries. They're going to be going through senior day, so it'll be an emotional day for them. That's always something you've got to look out for. It could go either way. They could tank it early and then have to come back, or they could be playing lights out because it's an emotional day and they're 2-9 and they really don't have anything to lose. So it's a dangerous opponent, I think, in many ways. So, experienced quarterback, great offensive line. Will the receivers step up? They like to use the tight ends. I love a team that, you guys know that. I love a team that uses the tight ends in a lot of different ways. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's EKU. Do they go out there with the mentality of how is 4-8 different than 5-7? Or do they go out there and go, let's go out on a strong note here so we can carry that momentum into next season?
I think we've seen this team, despite what has not been the year they wanted, work hard every practice and play hard during the games and show character there. With Utah Tech, you mentioned that their top three receivers are a running back and two tight ends, and they've had six wide receivers and one tight end that's had a carry or two in the game. So they mix it up, and that offensive line, how they always say the hardest thing to develop, and it takes a while, are at the offensive line. Three freshmen, true freshmen, are starting. Now the portal may take him away next year. And we saw Bronson Barber, their starting quarterback, do really well against EKU in Richmond through the air last year. EKU pounded them on the ground. Carter had 167 yards. Latham was near 50. Carter had a good rushing game out there. So EKU's rushing game is what did it the last two times they played. But they have a good field goal kicker. He's hit 4 field goals over 50 yards. They have a punter that's sixth in the country. So they have some pieces. And when you've only won four, you can't say it's a trap game against another team, but it sets up to be a challenge for Eastern Kentucky. This isn't a W before you board the plane in any way.
You mentioned the special teams, the good field goal kicker, their punter sixth in the nation, Ryan Marks. I mean, he's fantastic. They blocked a kick, a punt last game against West Georgia, and it was the first punt they'd blocked in, I think, 5 or 6 seasons. So it was a big deal for them. And Coach Anderson told me that they had really worked on that part of the game. They had wanted to get a block. They wanted it so bad that they had went after 2 others in that game and got roughing the kicker penalties. So they had seen something on film that they wanted to exploit. They went after it, didn't get it right the first couple of times, finally got one right and was able to block a kick. The problem was their offense couldn't turn it into points. They had a little bit of the EKU syndrome. They got the turnovers, but the offense couldn't do anything with it. So they have good special teams. I think I'll stop just short of saying that I think Anderson is a very, very good disciplinarian. I think this is a team doesn't get a lot of penalties. They can be disciplined at times, but the offense just seems to have had the trouble moving the football this year.
Well said in breaking down the film and getting ready that they're a little loose carrying the football. In other words, their ball security has been a problem. You mentioned their coach. He was under Jim Harbaugh at San Diego and then at Stanford. And then when Harbaugh left under David Shaw, so he comes from that kind of that Stanford tree, the West Coast tree. We'll see. It should be a fun one, I mean, we'll see. I think the team's ready. I just don't know what you're going to get from the offense. We may really show up and show an Austin Peay kind of performance, but when you look at it and you break it down and you look at the numbers, how many points are going to be put on the board? EKU's total points is 18.1 a game, and right now Utah Tech's below that. So do you think we're going to be in the 20s? Are we going to be surprised, or is it going to be a low-scoring game like we had last week?
In my mind, it should be low scoring, unless EKU gets 4 turnovers, gets that gift, and then it could get out of hand, much like the West Georgia game did, 23-0. But you remember, just one last number I'll throw at you. You remember how good that we had a previous team come in on fourth down. They were 100% of Southern Utah. Well, Utah Tech's number two on fourth down conversion percentage. So all the Utah teams are the gamblers. They're going for it on fourth down. Maybe they 2-9 senior day. Maybe they go for it on fourth down a couple more times. And if they're able to get those conversions, Utah Tech's offense could stay on the field and give EKU's defense some problems. We'll see what happens.
Before we sign off for one final time, let's get one final question of the day. You boys ready?
We're ready.
All right. And it looks like it's a question heading into the off season. So it's from Garrett. Garrett writes, what do you think is EKU's biggest hole they need to fill in the off season?
Well, it's the lines, and I think it's the defensive line because of graduations and my potential concern over what will happen through NIL pulling really good players to a higher level. You never know what's going to happen there. So that's a big mystery, and we've got to do something on the offensive line. Now, I think we've got some young kids coming up, but you got to have line play before you do anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will say, though, that there are guys that got experience this year that you thought they may not get experience, at least a ton of it this year. Case in point, Hunter Gully. You get a kid like that, comes in, makes a couple of starts this season. At the end of the year, he's ready to go unless somebody plucks him from you for the next season. You wouldn't think so with just 2 or 3 games experience, but you never know with the portal. And that is the number one position, I think, in my mind, that gets plucked from one level up to the next. Is their offensive linemen and defensive linemen are such a premium. Those guys, that's one of the first things that those schools above are looking to bring up, able to fill some holes, get some back depth on the offensive line and the defensive line. It's difficult to hold on to guys. I will say that I think that the secondary, they may have to get a player or two in the secondary for this upcoming year. And they've played so well this year. They really have. And that's been a luxury. That the EKU secondary, we haven't seen it that often, that they've been so good on the backside. And this year's been a pleasant surprise. And you can kind of see it a little bit at the end of last year. So I think secondary will also be something that's on Santa's wish list, but a late Christmas, January 2nd through the 16th.
Yeah, because you have Tisdale and Ward running out of eligibility. Taylor's played well. Will he be back? I mean, but
Alva.
I think there's holes in the cheese all over for FCS teams, and we'll see.
Yeah.
And phew,
And we may be
it
talking about holes that we didn't know we needed in 2 weeks from now. So who knows? It's
exactly.
interesting to see where it'll all go.
I will say that my wish list, my personal wish list, you guys know what I'm going to say. How about a couple
Tight
more
end.
big old tight
Tight
ends?
ends.
Those guys in there.
Have you been good enough to get a tight end this year, Jim? No.
Heck no.
Maybe your wish will come true. Who knows? All right. Well,
We'll get one giggle. He giggles when a tight end makes a big play. We'll get one giggle out of him here at the end of the year.
there we go. That sounds like a plan. Well, special thanks to all those that have sent in our emails this entire year for our question of the day. Thank you, Garrett, for sending us that one. Well, this wraps up our final Biggie breakdown of the football style. We'll have a couple more during basketball season, but guys, it's been a pleasure to do these with you, and it's been a pleasure to be a part of the call this year. And we'll have one final game to send us out the right way, hopefully.
Go Big E.
Go Big E.